Hey guys, so in November I was interviewed by Katie Boateng on the Smell podcast. For those of you who don't know, I was born and raised and grew up and still can't smell. It's called anosmia. I was born with it. I grew up without being able to smell. So that's what we talk about. You might be able to tell, but I was pretty excited and more high energy than usual because you don't really get to meet these kinds of people who have anosmia, people who can't smell. It's kind of rare. So when you find somebody that is so rare that understands what it's like to have anosmia, you naturally get a little excited. So you might be able to tell. I had a really good time. We go into detail, my growing up without being able to smell. My sister, who also was born like me, not being able to smell, but she recovered, and we talked a little bit about that. We talk about my doctor's visits. We talk about all sorts of things. So yeah, she recently posted our episode, so that is on her Apple Podcasts. I use Spotify, so that's where I listen to it on. So I'll leave a link down on the description below. So I figured, and I asked if I could do this, but that I upload the audio. We did it through Skype. I'm going to show you guys the interview here. This was a really enjoyable interview for me. Thank you again, Katie, for having me. So yeah, here's my interview with Katie Boateng on the Smell podcast. Enjoy.
Hi, Daniel. Welcome to the Smell Podcast. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing really good. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself? Where are you from and where do you currently live?
Yes, I was born in Vancouver, and I pretty much stayed here all my life, mainly in the city next to Vancouver called Burnaby. But people around here refer to the surrounding cities of Vancouver as Vancouver. So, yeah,
All right. So it's like a suburb.
kind of, yeah. It was more of a suburb before, but now it's uh, increasingly becoming more urban. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. So I think we kind of connected online. I watched your YouTube video. So can you tell us a little bit about your anosmia story and the YouTube video that you made?
Yeah, so to my knowledge, I was born without a sense of smell. My sister as well. Um, so I've heard some people say that if you might have had an accident where you hit your head, that might have been a trigger. And I think I remember somebody telling me that I did hit my head once, but
Mm,
I'm doubting that that's what caused it because my sister also can't smell. So
yeah.
I am pretty sure we were just both born without it.
Okay.
Um, and we were unaware of it until I was we went to music class every Saturday, and there was a girl who I think had a heightened sense of smell, ironically,
Hmm.
and she would always say, "Oh, I smell strawberries," or "Oh, I smell this, I smell that," and I would always be perplexed, like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't see any of the things that you're smelling in front of me. So how is this possible? Are you just making it up, sort of thing? And I think maybe there would be a couple times when, sure enough, somebody would bring strawberries down when she said she smells strawberries or something, and that's when I started going, is it is it my problem? And
Right.
so eventually I would, ask, hey, so do you smell this in front of me? Do you smell this in front of you? And I'm like, or either I would ask them or they would ask me, and the answer would be no for me and yes for them.
Mm.
And my sister and I talked about it, and like, yeah, she can't smell either, and that's how we kind of found out. Um, and yeah, were you gonna say something?
And I was just thinking about your sister, you
Yeah.
and your sister, about how old was she, like when you guys had that conversation?
So I found out pretty much, I think, around the age of 10 or 11, maybe 12, around there. And so she's a year and a half older than me. So yeah, around there.
Okay, and you guys just had never figured it out before that time.
No, never occurred to us. I always thought that, I don't know, like people's ability to smell, like, those, Bugs Bunny.
Hmm.
I think, I don't know, there like those cartoons where there's a pie sitting on a window, and then there's that cartoonish that scent that travels in the air, and
Yeah, like the air marks.
exactly, yeah. And I always thought that that was like for an exaggeration or just for dramatic effect, something like that. But yeah, it turns out that, smells can travel that far.
That's
So
interesting. So,
yeah.
have you guys shared it with the rest of your family members? What do they say?
Yeah, funny enough, so I don't think I told them until I was maybe 14 or 15 because it just never really occurred to us. It's not like an immediate problem. So like I remember you asked your previous guest, do you consider it a disability?
Hmm.
And I can answer that later, but it's not an immediate problem, so it never really had to come up until it came up organically. So yeah.
What did they say? Did they like, what do you mean you're just telling us this when you're like however many years old?
Yeah, and they'd be like, "What do you mean you can't smell?" And like, "You really can't smell this?" They'd put something in front of me. I'm like, "No," and they'd be like, "Huh, weird." And then I guess because they also didn't see it as an immediate problem, they'd be like, "Huh, weird," and they just kind of just brushed it off.
Interesting.
Um, yeah, and so I remember going to a clinic. I can't remember what my initial reason for that visit to the clinic was, but I think it was a free clinic, so I think I just asked them since I was there anyway about whether or not they could do anything about my smell.
Hmm.
And so they referred me to a specialist in Vancouver, and I think I took a CT scan. I can't remember if it was the day of or a couple weeks before, but I took a CT scan, and I talked about this in my video where I met with the specialist. He sprayed a couple things up my nose and he said, wait 10 minutes, I'll be right back. And after a couple of minutes, I was curious to see what he sprayed up my nose. And it said, I can't remember the first word, the prefix, but it said something cocaine. And that,
Wow.
yeah, and it's not, I didn't feel anything at all other than numbing my nose. But
Right.
it's all like medical. The purpose of that spray was to numb my nose to shove a camera up there so I don't
Mm.
feel pain, I guess.
Yeah.
And so there was a screen in front of me, and a I guess kind of like a snake camera, like kind of like a little tube, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just put it up my nose and you could see the camera or the footage on the screen. And yeah, it was a pretty interesting experience. I kept sneezing as he shoved it up there, and
Mm.
he said, "Yeah, I don't see anything abnormal. We can experiment with some drugs, some medication, but it'll obviously cost you." And I guess at the time, I didn't want my parents to pay for anything extra, so I was like, just forget it. Just yeah, it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
Um, but I guess. Yeah, so that's what I talk about in the video. But a couple months ago, I thought, you know what, I'm gonna try again because I have. I noticed another question of yours is if I could have a sense of smell, would I want one? And my
Mm-hmm.
answer is yes, because I have a theory that there is a link to depression with anosmia.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not, and I've read online that most people kind of think that it's with people who lose their sense of smell, but I have my reasons to think that even people who have congenital anosmia may be prone to depression as well.
Right.
And we can talk about that later. But so I found my way to get an appointment with another specialist, and I did that a couple months ago.
Okay.
And yeah, she also shoved a camera up my nose. This time she didn't actually spray any numbing spray up my nose. She just shoved it up there, and it was fine, I
Oh.
guess. I
Hmm.
mean, it was a smaller tube, so maybe that had something to do with it. Maybe
Right.
technology progressed or something. But yeah, she asked me if I could taste, and I said, yeah, I can taste. But she started to make me question whether or not I could taste because she started to say, like, are you sure you can taste? Because what you're telling me, it might be something else.
Mm.
Um, and so I started to question it myself, but I'm pretty sure I can taste because I can. So I was at a dinner a couple of weeks ago, and there was multiple flavors of hummus on the table. And I told them that I can't smell, and then so they asked me, "How does this taste to you?" and they pointed to one flavor in particular, and I said I tried it again, and I told them, yeah, this is one of the most tasteless things I've ever put in my mouth in my entire
Right.
life.
Yeah.
And they were shocked because they said that that was the most flavorful hummus on the table.
Wow.
And that shocked me because I always thought I can taste, that's fine. But I guess, yeah, when they told me that, that made me think that my lack of smell has an even bigger effect to my taste than I thought previously.
Yeah, for sure. I'm interested in actually getting my own sense of taste tested because
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think that it's probably more impacted than we realize.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I told them, well, I can taste the differences between different flavors of potato chips. And then they told me, well, they really, really purposefully add flavors onto that. So that's probably why. And I thought, wow, that's probably why I like potato chips so much, because that's something that I can sense a lot more, maybe.
Right. They're very flavorful.
Yeah.
Well,
And
interesting.
yeah. And so the second specialist that I went to, she got me an appointment to get an MRI next month on Boxing Day. But I was curious. I think you and I are both in the same Facebook group for Anosmics,
Hmm.
and that's how I found your podcast, by the way. And
Oh, good.
yeah, and I asked the group if, whether or not you guys have seen a specialist, ENT, ear, nose, throat specialist, and out of you guys, how many of you have gone to take an MRI? And then out of you guys, did it help after that? And what happened after that? And I'm sad to say that most people have said, yeah, even after the MRI, they couldn't find anything, and so there's nothing we can do right now. So
Right. Yeah, that
yeah,
seems pretty typical.
yeah,
There's not a lot that's known about anosmia yet, so I think that by going to the doctors and stuff, it's good because it rules out anything that's necessarily like wrong in terms of something that could like harm you a lot, but it
yeah,
still doesn't really help you because you don't really know what's wrong with you specifically. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. It's good to, yeah, just to see if there's anything else that's going on, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, kind of you've grown up with anosmia then. So, what's your most memorable anosmia experience growing up?
Yeah, so I don't know about funny, but there was one time when my dad told me to watch. He was cooking a pot of herbs, and he had to leave the house, so he told me to watch it. Um, and for, I don't know, whatever reason, I forgot about it, and I went upstairs, and I probably forgot about it, and I went to take a nap.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, you probably know where this is going, and but lucky I'm here, so we're all good. But when my dad came home, he was like, he was understandably really angry. He was like, "Don't you smell that?" And I was like,
Right.
"Oh no!" And it was all burnt, and there was, I guess, I think there might have been some smoke. And he was like, "Hey, if I didn't come home at this time, you could have burnt down, you could have burnt down the house."
Right. Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was kind of sad. I mean, people point out that. It would be dangerous in case of a gas leak as well, which
Hmm.
I don't know what that smells like either. But yeah, so that's not a funny experience, but it was definitely memorable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess something else that's interesting is that I did actually smell for the first time a couple of times for like 15 minutes or 5 to 15 minutes, and it went away again. I said this in my video on YouTube.
Okay.
Um, I'm not sure if you remember that. I was 15, and it was after school. I went to the restaurant next to my school, and I was eating Taiwanese chicken nuggets. And I was eating alone. And as I was eating, it was just a shock because it was my first time smelling. And
Hmm.
it was just this whole thing going on. If I remember distinctly in front of my face, like right in front of my nose, like maybe a couple of inches in front of my nose. It just felt like I was sensing all of this in front of my face, like outside of my body, right in
Hmm.
front of my nose, and like maybe in the roof of my mouth and like just all in that area. And it was just, it was as if I saw the world in black and white before, and then I had color vision for the first time, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And it didn't
unfortunately,
last.
no, I mean, after I finished eating, after that, I couldn't smell again.
Mm.
So that, yeah, that was just out of nowhere. And unfortunately, I was eating by myself, so I couldn't tell anyone. I really wanted to tell somebody, but I didn't know anybody, so I couldn't tell anybody. So yeah, this happened a couple times. Yeah, the other time I was drinking, and normally when I drink, obviously, it doesn't taste very good. But when I there's one time when I could smell again for 5, 10, 15 minutes, and it was just 10 times worse because you could feel it a lot more, feel the alcohol a lot more.
Interesting.
So yeah, it was temporary again. So
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
I don't know either. That's interesting. We'll have to run that past some scientists and see what they think about that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, when smell comes up for you in your daily life, do you take the time to explain to people that you don't have a sense of smell?
Yeah, yeah, it can be funny. Sometimes I'm more excited about telling somebody because it's, really interesting about me. Like, I mean, I don't know, like whenever you're in those environments when they ask you, hey, just tell us something interesting about yourself, that's pretty much my go-to now because
Right.
it's so rare, right? So,
Hmm.
yeah, other times it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have to repeat my whole like mantra again, my whole spiel again. But yeah, so I definitely do try to explain it. Sometimes when people ask, oh, do you smell that? And I just go, oh, I can't smell. A lot of the times they just go, oh, okay. They don't realize what I'm saying. They probably assume like, oh, I can't smell right now. I have a blocked
Yeah.
nose or something.
Hmm.
But other people, they'll look at me and then they'll realize, wait, what do you mean exactly? And I go, yeah, no, I really just can't smell every day. And so, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I've had that experience myself, so
yeah,
I think it's hard for people to understand that you mean ever.
yeah. It'd be like, yeah, it's interesting to see the reactions like, oh, you probably just can't smell right now and walk away. But it's like, nope, I really can't smell every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned this earlier that this is a question that I typically ask people, but I'm interested in your thoughts since you think that you're congenital. Do you identify as having a disability?
Yeah, and I share the answer that one of your previous guests had. In a way, it is. I mean, like I said, where if my dad didn't come home early enough, I could have burned down my house, and I might have even died from that, right? So definitely a disability in that sense. If there was a gas leak in my house and somebody lit a lighter, that would be a problem. So it's definitely a disability, but it's just not as immediate, like I said before, as the other, like being blind or being deaf. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Yeah.
So this is off topic, but do you and your sister ever talk about the fact that you guys have anosmia?
Oh, right. I forgot to mention. She actually recovered. So
Oh,
to my jealousy. I mean, I think she started to recover when she was 16.
oh,
And I would have been 15 around that time. So around the time that I smelled for the first time was around the time that she started to recover, which is interesting. I wonder what triggered that. But yeah, I don't know. She started to be able to smell like bit by bit. She would say that it's not the same as regular people, but like she could start to smell a little bit here and there.
oh, that's fascinating.
But yeah, so I'm turning 25 now, so it's been 10 years, over 10 years since that happened, and I still can't smell, but she can. So
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah,
We have to do like a case study on you guys and figure out what's going on
yeah.
there.
I volunteer as tribute.
What would you like people who do not have anosmia to know about what it's like living with it?
Um, so I guess one thing is that you can't know whether your food is expired or not. You often have to look at it. If there's visible mold on it, then you can be able to tell. Or, but like normal people, they can just smell it and then be able to tell. That's one thing. I guess something that I do want to talk about is my theory that anosmia has a link to depression.
Yeah, please.
Um, so when I first looked it up, I think most people were talking about people who lost their sense of smell, and I can certainly understand that. Um, I obviously have a different experience, but I can imagine if you could smell before and lost it, it would kind of be like, viewing the world in color, but then suddenly only being able to see shades of black and white. You can still see, I can still breathe, but it's drastically reduced, right? And so I
Mm-hmm.
can imagine why that would be really depressing to have that robbed from you. But I guess for people that have congenital anosmia, I think that the reason why you could still have that link to depression is with normal, regular people, quote unquote, regular people. If you imagine a graph or like a heart monitor with the squiggly line on it,
Mm-hmm.
at the top, for example, if at the top it represents smelling something really pleasing, like something really good, and at the bottom it's something like really disgusting. Um, People who can smell, that line is going up and down throughout their day, whether they're smelling something on their way to work, on their back to work, at work, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
If they smell something good, it could trigger a nice memory, or whatever it is. It's at the very least stimulating your brain in a way that people who can't smell isn't, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that even if you're smelling something bad, you're getting that dynamic difference in your brain chemistry, your neurology is going
More
up and down.
stimulation, yeah.
More stimulation, exactly. It's going from up to down. Oh, this smells really good. Oh, this reminds me of something. Oh my God, that smells really bad. But for me, someone who can't smell, that line is kind of just stagnant in the middle there and just like a straight line, not moving.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, yeah, I can breathe, but it's a lot more boring to breathe. And that sounds really dark, but that's really what it is. It's just a lot more boring to breathe than for regular people to breathe.
Yeah, it's less stimulating. I think that makes sense.
Yeah. And so yeah, it's kind of because I have been able to breathe for like a couple minutes at a time in my life. I to answer your other question, if I could have a sense of smell, I, I would really want it because it was so dynamic. It was really like only being able to see in black and white and then seeing all the colors of the rainbow and then having that rob the view again. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And another thing that I guess people might not realize is that I have a lack of appetite. Like normal people, if they smell something, oh, I want to eat that, or oh, this reminds me of something else, I want to eat that. But because I can't smell, I have a weaker appetite. Those times, those instances don't happen to me. And even as I'm eating, I think that food is kind of less interesting to me. So eating is almost kind of a chore, like, oh, if I don't eat enough, I'm gonna feel bad, so make sure you eat, as
Right.
opposed to, oh, I really like this food. I should go out of my way to make something or get something to eat. Um, and that might, lead to being malnutritioned. I think there was a good chunk of my time when I was really not eating enough. Like I wasn't even eating 1,000 calories a day.
Oh,
I think
wow.
yeah, like I was on an app that told you to like put in all the food that you eat in a day, and yeah, it came out to be like, I don't know, 700 to 900 calories, or sometimes even less than that.
Mm.
But that would be normal for me. So yeah.
When you had that experience where like you weren't very interested in eating, were you still hungry or you didn't feel hungry?
You mean when I smelled for the first time?
No, so like when you're talking about how you didn't really eat a lot of food
Yeah.
because you weren't that interested in it, were
Yeah.
you hungry
Oh,
also, or you just weren't feeling hungry either?
um, yeah, there would be times when I was hungry and I would eat, I guess I would just eat enough to relieve that feeling of hunger, and then I would not feel like eating after that.
Mm,
Whereas I guess regular people, when they're hungry, they'll eat and they'll not feel hungry anymore. They'll not feel hungry anymore, but they'll still want to continue eating because it's just so good, right?
right. Yeah.
And another thing is, when people cook for me, I don't know if this is something that you've noticed, but when people cook for me, they'll always kind of like look at me and go like without knowing that I can't smell, they'll always ask like, "How is it?" sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
But the way that they ask, it kind of makes me think that normal people, it's more dynamic whether something is like really good or really bad. But for
Mm,
me, the spectrum of whether food is really good or bad is kind of reduced. So when somebody asks me something that they cooked, oh, how is it? I always go, oh, I mean, it's food. I mean, it's not, it's kind of more rare for me to go, oh, this is so good, or oh, this is really bad. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's more of a bland experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And I noticed that I do like to add salt on my food. So I think that that's less of a smell thing and more of a taste thing. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty common for people who have anosmia to over sugar, over salt, over
Yeah.
anything our food just to kind of get an experience out of it.
Yeah. I definitely remember adding extra salt to my fries and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you already answered the question about if you could have a sense of smell, you would definitely want one, just based off of those few moments in your life where you have had that experience of having some kind of smell.
Yeah.
Um, do you have anything else that you'd like to share with listeners?
Yeah, so the second specialist that I talked to, she did recommend that I order a upsit smell test on Amazon.
Oh,
And
okay.
I do remember you talking about that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I haven't done it yet because it costs like, I don't know, a couple $100, so I just been putting it off.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, so because I think they make it in the States. One thing that she also said was that in Canada they don't really have clinics that specialize in smell. I think that they have some in the States.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know, like, have you tried the upset smell test at all?
I did take it before. It's the University of Pennsylvania. What is it? Smell identification test, I think is what it stands for. And
Okay.
it's like a scratch and sniff kind of thing.
Hmm.
I think it's out of 40, and I believe I scored like a 6,
Oh my God.
which is
Okay.
probably due to guessing because you have to choose, like you have to pick. But maybe it could be that I got it right. I'm not sure.
Wait, gassing? What do you mean by that?
Oh, guessing.
Oh, guessing, sorry.
No, no, no. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So they,
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether my 6 were due to guessing or if they were due to maybe I actually picked up on something.
Hmm.
I'm not sure, but that's yeah, the upset test is you can definitely do it on your own.
Hmm.
You just have to have someone who can like help you interpret the results, I think.
Okay. Like what it actually smells like, you mean?
Well, no, I think you can get the answer. So like you can take it and
Oh,
then you can see like whether you got it correct or incorrect. But I think it's useful to kind of like do it with someone or like show it to someone who works in that field so they can say like, oh wow, like I don't know. Like
yeah, yeah.
you only got 6 out of 40. Let's like do something else to see if that's accurate or not, you know?
Hmm. Then do you mind if I ask how you were able to access it? Did you buy it online too? Order it off of Amazon?
Oh, good question. So no, I actually was able to take it at there was a conference at the Identifying Treatments for Taste and Smell Disorders conference, which was in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania last November 2018. And they actually, the company who makes the UPSIT exam, they were there and they were letting us, the people who had anosmia, take the exam for
Oh,
free.
oh,
So I didn't have to
nice.
pay for it. Yeah.
Okay, so you're doing it on site, just right there?
Yes, so we did it
Oh,
right
okay.
there. I
Okay. So you,
think
yeah.
I think they're called let me look up the name of the company. Yeah, it's called Sensonics. So if you're interested, it's sensonics.com and it's spelled Sensonics.
.com. Okay.
Yeah. And I think you can order it from them.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And
I haven't actually seen it on Amazon, but it might be there.
did you find the test helpful at all?
I mean, I think it confirmed what I already knew.
Okay. I see. I
You know
see.
what I mean? So,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
but it looks like on this website it's about $27.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think the reason why it came up to like, I think it was like $180 was because she
Wow.
told me to get a couple of them, like one for, I think she told me to
Interesting.
get a package of 5 or something. So I'm
Wow.
not sure. Yeah.
But this website is pretty good if you are interested. You can order it for sure.
Okay. I'll check it out. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. How can listeners get connected with you on social media, especially like your YouTube channel and stuff?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Twitter with the handle Dan ZWKU. Um, and my YouTube channel is just my name, Daniel Ku, KU.
Awesome. I'll make sure that I include that in the episode description for everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today and talking with all of us.
No, thank you for having me.
Yay.